Scott Armstrong, your business acumen you've been able to achieve has been nothing short of inspiring on the Sunshine Coast. Talk to me about your appetite of risk.
I guess I was brought up by my father worked for Qantas for many years, but then went into his own business. And so he was very much an entrepreneur.
Did the arrival of the kids change anything internally for you?
I think it does from a responsibility point of view. It probably made it harder to jump. For me, it was a little bit harder to jump because you've got that risk and that responsibility there that it's not just your wife and yourself, it's now two little ones. And if you screw this thing up, you've got a lot on the line.
Have you ever stood at the edge of a big decision, wondering if the leap was worth the risk? Today's guest, Scott Armstrong, knows that feeling well. From humble beginnings to building one of the Sunshine Coast's most respected hospitality empires, Scott's journey is packed with bold moves, near wipeouts, and clever pivots. In this episode, we unpacked his appetite for risk, the people who shaped his trajectory, and how he scaled from one pub to managing hundreds of staff right across the coast. And only recently, to make the decision to sell the empire and walk away with grace. If you're curious about leadership, legacy, or lifestyle-driven success, this one's for you. Scott Armstrong, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Nice to be here, Richard.
Your business acumen, what you've been able to achieve has been nothing short of really so inspiring on the Sunshine Coast, particularly. From an outsider looking in, you're looking at there's so much risk in aspects of your business, of what you do and what you've grown to do. Talk to me about your appetite of risk and how that's grown from maybe as a child into adulthood and beyond.
Absolutely. I mean, risk is a really key thing to get clear on at an early stage. And I guess I was brought up by my father worked for Qantas for many years, but then went into his own business. And so he was very much an entrepreneur. And I think as I'll talk a little bit about my corporate life, which was prior to us going into entrepreneurship, but it was something that sort of was eating at my core, when I was in corporate to get out and do my own thing. But particularly with risk, I think you've got to look at it from both sides of the fence. It's all very well to have this great aspiration, but what are the downsides and what are the potential risk factors that you've got to mitigate and look at? And I think specifically with risk, need to really consider the issues that could cause your complete business failure. And I think focus on those things. That are you prepared to, go down that train to achieve something that could be quite special. So
do you in those scenarios, when you are thinking about them, do you contemplate that occurring and then accept that could occur? Or are you just putting a roadblock and saying, well, I'll make sure that is not even a possibility?
For me, it was more the second bit. It was one acknowledging them, considering that it may happen, but then coming up with a plan to try and make sure that didn't happen. And I think you need a lot of people around you, particularly the banks have been very supportive of me, and that's not easy to do when you first go out there and sort of say, hey, I'm going to have a crack at this, and they say sort of, what's your experience? But I think it's just getting some people around you, and I think it's around building a network of people and a trust, I guess, in what your past performance has been, and to look people in the eye and really be able to give them the vision that you've got and how you're going to go about it, and that comes in business planning and those types of things as well.
And you've had in your corporate life, you've worked in a number of different sectors.
Yes.
Why is it? What drew yourself and Kelly, to your wife, to hospitality at the very beginning?
Yeah, I think so. I started off just if you'd like me to get into some of the corporate stuff. So after finishing school, I did a Bachelor of Business, and that was because I simply didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea where I was going. That was probably the broadest course you could do, and I just scraped in. I think I needed 305 in the old HSC, and I got 306.
The bare minimum.
The bare minimum. Went to the University of Technology. School was not really my friend. I never really enjoyed it. I found it was a little bit regimented for me, and I think my success was later when I was a little bit more unstructured. So I went after getting my Bachelor of Business with a major in marketing. I went and worked for fast-moving consumer goods like a lot of guys do. I went to Colgate-Palmolive and I was there for 5 years. And that was, very enjoyable, a great training ground. Went from a sales rep all the way through acquisitions. Yeah, so from there I sort of got, those days all the job advertisements were in papers. So I read an advertisement for a company called Tui's, which is Lion Nathan today. They'd only just taken over, and that was as a trade marketing manager. So that was my first entree into hospitality, I guess, if you like. So I started there as a trade marketing manager, which was basically the conduit between sales and marketing. And it was just the dream job for me because I love sport and I loved hospitality. I'd enjoyed going to bars and those types of things. And I've always been quite a social person and a people person. So it was the perfect fit for me. And I spent the next 9 years there and obviously came across a lot of hospitality people in that time, particularly in pubs, but also clubs.
What was your jurisdiction?
I was New South Wales. I ended up as New South Wales state manager there. So,
okay.
So hotels and clubs were what we did. Always on premise, not so much the bottle shops, but much more the pubs and clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was where I started to, look at it from the other side and have meetings with different people and different conversations. Yeah, as I was having those conversations with these individuals, I was just seeing myself a little bit from their side, and I'd find my mind drifting off a little bit in terms of, hey, I wouldn't mind being you one day. And that got a little bit clearer in my mind that, it was something that, I could achieve. At that stage, I had no idea how I was going to get there. The pubs, even back in those days, were very expensive. And, to run and to own or even to lease. And it seemed a bridge too far. From Tui's, I spent 9 years there, and then I went across to gaming with Aristocrats. I was, again, state manager, same position, but very, very different role. So that gave me some experience in the gaming side of things. And while I was there, I was approached to part own a hotel, which was the President Hotel in Belrose. It's now the Belrose Hotel.
Okay.
With a guy called Bill Waugh, who was, a bit of an inspiration for me and a great mentor.
Were you looking for that at the time?
Not really. It sort of came out of the blue. And so that then opened up a little bit more opportunity to look at figures and understand how pubs worked. And he was very generous with his time and gave me an insight as to how they operated. And so I was using it in those days for the benefit of the corporate work that I was doing. But at the same time, I think it was just building this passion to go out on my own at some stage and probably in some ways follows my father's footsteps, but also it was just inbuilt in me that to go out and do your own thing.
Yeah, right. And so you, at the same time as working for the gaming, you had that share interest in the pub.
Correct, and they were happy with that, and there was no conflict there. So that was great. I couldn't do anything with them, but it just gave me an idea of how that the products that we were delivering previously in liquor, and secondly in gaming, how that was contributing to the overall profitability of the hotel
pub.
Yeah.
And talk to me about your wife, Kelly. When does she come in to the fray?
Yeah, so Kelly has been a massive part of it, really, particularly from the point of actually backing me to go out on my own, because obviously it was very, very, very high risk. I guess I was leaving a very good paying job. We'd just had 2 kids. We had a big mortgage, very comfortable, but the challenges of people at that age trying to balance a young family and work at the same time, trying to improve yourself, get ahead. And so she was massively supportive of a move. She pretty much said, well, we don't have a lot now, so we've got time to put it all on the line. We were, I guess at that stage, I was probably about 37, 38.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was a big risk because you just had a couple of young kids and I was on a very good wicket there. And And I was really enjoying it. So it wasn't leaving something that I was unhappy with. It was
did the arrival of the kids change anything internally for you?
I think it does from a responsibility point of view. It probably made it harder to jump.
Interesting.
Yeah, for me it was. It was a little bit harder to jump because
that risk.
You've got that risk and that responsibility there that it's not just your wife and yourself. It's now two little ones, and if you screw this thing up, you've got a lot on the line.
So talk to me then about those conversations between, I guess, with yourself, with Kelly, with your inner circle of going from that comfortable corporate job to going fully out on your own.
Yeah, it was a big leap, and it was right around Christmas time in 2003. I remember it well. We farewelled Mum and Dad, who had lived in Sydney for all of their years, and we're taking the kids away, the grandkids away, and driving up. And I can still remember waving to them in the driveway. It was an emotional time. So we came up here, and so end of 2003, start of 2004. And we'd bought the Stafford Tavern.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was, many people would know, in Brisbane, only about 6 k's north of the CBD there. And I guess, I spoke of Bill Waugh earlier about it. He was a Sydney, he basically ran a company, a hotel business where he managed, part owned, but also brought some investors in. And it pretty much showed me that there was a way forward here. How do you go out and buy I think the Stafford, we might have paid $8.5 million for it or something. Yeah, how do you go out and buy that and operate it? I think I had about $500,000, and that was it. And that was in home equity that we were able to sort of go and yep, let's put it all on the line and have a crack. And that bought my share, and then I went from being on a salary of well over a couple of $100,000 to running the hotel on about 85
and in debt.
Yeah, and at that stage we were up on the Sunshine Coast. So I was driving back from the Sunshine Coast to Brisbane 6 days a week. Kelly was working with me day in, day out through there. She was running the restaurant. I think I was managing the pub. And
why did you choose the Sunshine Coast? And then with getting into Stafford?
Yeah, what had happened was we were going, and we were into going into the Surf Air, which was a brand new pub. Many people would know Surf Air going way back, and that was being redeveloped. And just as we were moving up here, my partner got a bit shaky on it. We'd already put a lease down on a house. My partner said, "We'll do something. We'll do another one. Don't worry." But it ended up being 120 k's away. So for 6 months, we travelled down and back 6 days a week, and then we ended up leaving the Sunshine Coast and buying in Brisbane, where we would stay for another 8 or 9 years before coming back up to the Sunshine Coast to do what we'd originally planned.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Stafford was the only hotel in that time, or are you looking at other places?
So straight away, I was always thinking, my thoughts have always been about trying to scale things. And I knew that running a pub for me was not going to do it. As much as I enjoyed my time there, I was always looking to do multiple and scale these things. And
where does that come from?
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. And it wasn't something that initially we sort of said, let's do 3, 4, or 5 of these things. But I think it's just one of those things that you've either got it in you or you haven't. Mm-hmm. And I was never going to be happy running one site. I certainly don't say that in any arrogant way. It is just simply just the way my brain thinks. And I look to scale these things, and you're up against in those days Woolworths and Coles, and they had hundreds of pubs. So unless you scaled it, you weren't going to be competitive with them over time.
Mm.
And so we went with that investor model. So we had, I think, 8 or 9 investors with us, and we bought that first pub, and then we were to do the Sugarland Tavern about a year later up in Bundaberg. So
wow.
Next thing you know, we're
6 days a week, but travelling to Bundy.
Yeah, so we're up to Bundy for a while, and we held that pub for another 10 years, and from there we went and did a couple of others. We did one at Spring Hill, the International, and then this was just sort of pre-GFC and we were rolling, so it was 2004 when we started, got to 2005, 2006. The banks were very supportive. In fact, they were looking to join in the fund and be part of the scale push,
right?
Without mentioning which one. And they were very supportive of us. They'd sort of identified myself and maybe a couple of others in the industry to start to move that way. And then, of course, the GFC hits in 2007, and that set us back. Very, very much. We would probably up to about 5 or 6 hotels at that stage, and the next thing you know, your conversations are around.
Because what does that drop? That drops consumers. That drops your patrons.
Yeah, it was just tough because a lot of people, banks were then looking at their books and saying, "We got enough hotels, thanks very much," and we were happy with a loan-to-value ratio of 60%, and we now want to talk at 45 and 50, and
if you're not there, that's
and here's
a problem.
the gap going, and what are you going to do about it? And when you had private investors with you as well, it's hey, where's this coming from? That wasn't part of the arrangement.
Agreed,
yeah. So that certainly showed that to me, what you've got to sort of contemplate with risk. It's often things that are not seen and hit you from the side.
The unknown.
The unknown, exactly. And COVID was another classic, wasn't it? Who could have ever thought?
Well, I feel like it sounds like you had the scale to GFC and had to manage that, and
exactly.
Then you've relocated without jumping ahead of the chapters, but you then with COVID you've scaled again on the coast.
Yes.
To then be hit.
Yeah.
They're two really I know that
significant events.
Yeah, they're significant events, but I know that they impacted everyone, but particularly
in this
pubs
space,
and clubs. Yeah.
In this space. They were both very different. The GFC had lasting implications, and it was a financial crisis, very different to a health crisis,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
So that financial crisis was very different because without the banks, you just simply can't do what you're wanting to do. And if they consider they got too many pubs on the books or too much risk there, they're going to start to want you to, manage that down. And that's difficult when you've got other people with you and you're not solely in control. So that really slowed us up quite a bit. And in fact, from 2007, when we probably had 7 hotels under part ownership and management, we didn't do anything again till about 2012. And that's when I came back up to the coast to start really what we were doing. We still had all of those other pubs going. Some of them were going well, others weren't. Some were successful, some weren't. And I think that sort of shapes the style of pub that you buy as well.
You understand, because obviously you have that data and that experience to know why a particular venue is not working.
Yes. Yeah, for us it was the ones we bought in the CBD locations were an issue. We bought one in Spring Hill, which was, it's a great area and it was a great, really a great development site and had a lot of gaming machines, so it was quite valuable from that perspective. But the patronage of pubs where people potentially work but don't necessarily live, I think you got to be where they live. And that was a key learning for me through that period that, look for the suburban style pubs where people...
The local.
The locals, where people come home after work, might get changed and then go down the pub or rather than where they work, and you might get some lunch trade with them and then you're really trying to bring them in. And I guess, again, COVID, when that changed the whole CBD from working from home and that sort of aspect, that threw another challenge for those sort of CBD pubs. The one in Ipswich, I think, unfortunately, was, we were a victim of circumstance there. The Ipswich CBD sort of went across to the other side of the Bremer River, and unfortunately, it was just a very difficult position that we were in. And unfortunately, that investment didn't work.
The decision then what sparked that decision in 2012 to make the move back up to the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, I guess it was always in my mind. We're very or fairly lifestyle driven, really, in terms of we wanted to live on the coast. That was what we did in 2003, was to move up here, and I was thinking, almost a decade later, let's go and do it. And so we came up here, and I met Mal Pratt, who many people would know. Mal up here is significant player in the property market. He had a small pub at Belle Vista that he was looking to get off his hands, and I was sort of there at the right time. The great opportunity there was what was happening at Brightwater, and so Mal made me aware of that. If you cut your teeth on this one here and it goes well, then Brightwater's you're very favourably considered for that. So that's why we looked at Belle Vista. We did, and we worked there for a number of years. Then we did Belle Vista, Brightwater, grew to Parklands, then Baringa, and then Bly. So we pulled 4 or 5 up here on the coast, which was great.
Yeah. You say that with so much ease, Scott, because you're effectively scaling, an enterprise with so many different facets, with so many people. Like, talk to what would be right now, today, the amount of people who work underneath.
Yeah, so we've got 320. Yeah. Which is good. Not all of them full time, of course. So if looking at that, we'd probably have about, I'd say, I don't know the exact number, it'd be about 220, something like that, full time equivalents.
How do you what's been your takeaway of how to build and maintain the culture, right? So as you say, you're a people person, you're incredibly likable and liked and admired by the community. And the best way that I could describe it to anyone who hasn't been in any of your establishments is that it is like, there is that feeling.
Yes.
There's a vibe, there is a culture piece with everyone that it's like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
How have you been able to replicate the culture piece?
Yeah, so the interiors were a big part of it. So we used the Lani Burdome Di Challoner. She's, much as anything, a friend of ours from the Gold Coast, and she did a spectacular job at making our venues feel very homely. And I think, we were prepared to invest in them that little bit more than a lot of people do. And they look at things and they get the basics right, but then they don't finish them off with, it might be pieces of artwork or cushions or, some display behind the bar that's a little bit different. But it's just that last little bit, that last 5 or 10% that can take you into another realm. So the interiors were really important, but then the hard bit then come from matching that with your customer service, your quality of food and all of those sorts of things. So like anything, we look for a strong point of difference, and we felt that the right point of difference for us was to pitch ourselves somewhere a little bit be above the local pub from a look and feel point of view, but also from the level of service and the quality of the food and beverage and those sorts of offers. So it's not an easy thing to achieve, but I think if you can bring that whole thing into one experience, where you've got, your surroundings, the decor, the staff member that's smiling at you, the food then coming through, with fresh ingredients and cooked properly and everything else. I think people are prepared to spend a little bit more on that basis. We certainly weren't the cheapest around, but I think our value proposition was better than anyone else because, value I think is a function of price and quality, and not just price. Some people say, "Oh, you're too expensive." Well, we probably lost those people, but I think if they looked at their experience and said, wow, that was worth $150 that we just spent, it was a lot better than the $120 that we spent down the road a week ago. Yeah, so that was the value proposition.
But you got Stafford there, let's say, and you've got and not that maybe it wasn't, but let's say it's the same. Well, let's say you just have the Bly Hotel as a piecemeal example. If that's your only asset, you can control the chefs, you can control the customer service, the wait staff, all of that really quite easily. Yeah. How have you been so successful in scaling that model to half a dozen of these establishments?
I think we got our structure right. That was the main thing. And we decided, when you're running a hotel business up here, you're running a number of different businesses within the one business. Mm-hmm. So your bars are very different to your kitchen. Yes, they're related, but they're very different, and your chefs are certainly very different to the people that are running your front of house in the bars. Gaming's a very different business again. People are in there sometimes just from a destination point of view. That's all they want to do. There are other people that'll play socially. And then we had the bottle shops, the retail business, and functions on top of that. So I decided quite early on to look at those things as almost silos and set up ahead of each of those areas. So rather than me talking to the chefs, I set up a group executive chef. And so the group executive chef would have a very different conversation with the head chef, one that would be much more on point than what I could do.
Yeah.
But all the time when we had those heads of different departments, they were very hands-on in the business as well.
Mm.
So we were actually structured to grow to probably 10 pubs, and so we was very much around doing it the right way. You could have done it certainly cheaper than we did it, but we spent quite a bit of money in that area to make sure we were getting those areas right. So we had a specialist in retail, we had a specialist in food, a specialist in operations, and a specialist in gaming, and they ran those venues the same. So that whether you walked into one of our venues at Bly or at Baringa, we would have the same set of values running through there and the same set of procedures, the same attention to detail,
irrespective of where they are.
Yeah. And I was overseeing all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My role was to keep all those balls in the air across all those departments, and we had a high attention to detail, mate.
Since moving to the coast, or moving back to the coast, I guess, and starting where we're at now, what's been the hardest part of that journey? COVID?
COVID was tough, yeah. We were shut for 11 or 12 weeks. So that's, no one knew what was going on. I didn't have the answers. I don't think anyone had the answers, did they, when that first hit? And you had staff in tears sort of saying, what's going on?
Yeah, easy in retrospect to say that it was 3 months, but at that time,
it
could have been 6 months.
And the 3 months felt like 9, It was really difficult. We're never closed in the hospitality business. We choose to shut on Christmas Day. We have to shut on Good Friday. But other than that, we're open. So 7 days a week and, about 18 hours a day, you're open. And so this was, putting up the chairs and, it just seemed so weird.
It's not the business you're in.
Yeah, and exactly. And I can remember our department heads and myself we'd still go in and sit down and we just said, we just got to stop doing this. This is just crazy. And of course, I think, Teams and Zoom and all of those things just was a lifeblood for us all. We all learned how to do it pretty quickly, didn't we? And that helped that connection, which was, it was very tough in those times because we just didn't know what was happening.
Did you have any concerns about the viability of the business itself?
Absolutely. You just didn't know, did you? And, thankfully the government came to the fore as quickly as possible. Like it or hate it, JobKeeper, I thought was a great initiative. I know there was certainly some rorting of those types of things that when they happen. But what it did was it connected the employee with the employer. And so when, we were told to open within, 2 days' notice when we had no food and we wouldn't have had any staff, we were actually able to open these venues and people wanted to go back in, albeit, we were in pods of 10 people, this, that, and the other, but we were able to open. And those people were able to get paid when they weren't working and they were there when we needed them and then they went back into full employment very quickly. So I thought it was a really good initiative and, they had to do it quickly and, I thought it was successful.
And post, what does the landscape look like for hospitality after now we're here? Does it any lasting
I think it's been really, it's a tragic event worldwide, obviously, but I think the aftermath of it has been very, very positive for the hospitality industry. I think a lot of people loved to, realised how much they enjoyed that connection and they saw the pub or the club as the venue that they did that. So they were able to... They
don't take it for granted anymore, maybe.
Oh, and we had some really busy, some massive periods straight after that where people reconnected. And I think the other thing, you've had the work from home situation. So people are working from home a bit more, and they're meeting down the pub and, not necessarily to drink, but to maybe enjoy a meal with someone over business. And,
Yeah.
So I think those sorts of things were a couple of positives that came out of what was a very tough event.
Hey guys, just popping in with a gentle reminder. If you're enjoying this episode, we'd love it if you'd give it a like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts. It's free and it really helps us grow and continue to share these stories that matter. Cheers. The growth of Maeva, that's your the hospitality brand, or the whole the company. Is it fair to say that when you're backing out of your driveway in New South Wales and waving to your folks to say we're off to Queensland, could you envisage the size of what it is now? Or because of your brain, you're like, that's where it was always going to.
It is. And I don't want to sound arrogant by saying that.
No, I love
it's terrible because I sort of go, I can't say that. But I did. And, a few people said to me, wow, that's a spectacular result and well done and everything else. Don't believe me, I'm very, very proud of what we've done and what we've achieved. But I think, I did.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I did. And and in some ways there was further to go, there was definitely further to go. And that's the bittersweet and all, but you make a decision and you move on. I've always been decisive and, wanting to, do that. And then, okay, well, what's next? I don't quite know what's next, but you make a decision on the basis of what's in front of you. We had been able to achieve a lot. We loved every second of it, but it was for the main group. It was probably the time where we said, okay, well,
let's get into this because with the privilege that I have in being involved in a small part of your world, I could see from my end that business as usual and
definitely.
Scott Armstrong and Scott and Kelly are just doing their thing, and maybe I could only imagine we'll see in the news that you've bought another pub and developing it into one of your things, right?
Yeah.
And then it almost happened. It seemed to, really quickly.
Yeah.
That you've decided to sell.
Yeah.
Talk to me as much as you can. And this is going to be released after it's all sorted. And sorry, not sorted, but after it's all settled. But how did that come about?
Yeah, we were absolutely trying to grow. So we'd got to the stage where we were, our balance sheet was quite lazy. We were ready for another one or two acquisitions. Where, as I said earlier, we were structured to be able to handle that. So we were ready to go, but I just couldn't. And I had a look at 4 or 5 different pubs. We were quite particular about geography. We didn't want to probably move from Gympie to the north to probably Caboolture or something like that was about our wheelhouse, because I really didn't want our team, driving, crossing each other on the Bruce Highway and that sort of stuff. We wanted to stay local. Definitely around Sunshine Coast. But I looked at probably 4 or 5 different hotels and I just couldn't see any value there. Right. And,
in terms of what they're asking, or in terms of the future value, the potential?
In terms of what they were asking, really, yeah. So, I was just struggling to try and make that work. And that went on for probably 12 months. And I just got to the point, and the brokers, one of the brokers that I was working with, just turned the tables on me and said, well, if you can't seem to find value here, buying anything, well, would you consider selling? And I said, no, absolutely not. We're trying to grow. And then pretty much said to us, look, if I put a multiple in front of you and, would you have a look at it? And once they sort of said that, we'd done some valuations on the hotels. I knew exactly what our profitability was. Got the calculator out and hit a few digits and said, well, that's a pretty big number. Maybe I would have a look at it. And I rang my partner in 2 of the pubs, Richard Terry, who's got the Storybridge Hotel, and Woodford. and just spoke to him about it and where he sat, and he sort of thought, well, if around that sort of price, then we'd have a look at it. And so I really surprised myself. I walked back into a meeting straight after the phone call, and my wife Kelly was in there, and I sort of just was a bit dazed because I thought, I can't believe I've said yes, that I would have a look at it. And
because before that you're adamant.
Yeah, and I sort of knew that something had fundamentally changed. I sort of knew it was going to go through. It was a really weird experience.
Wow.
I don't know.
And had the broker had the buyer.
Yes.
In his he knew, or is he just saying if I can find that?
I think he knew that they would pay that,
right?
And as the negotiation panned out, what we said was under the bonnet was there, and they were true to form, and they paid what they said they were. So it was a very, very smooth transaction, and which is great because particularly from the staff point of view, that was the hard part for us was around the people, and they walked in and said, everybody in this whole business, all 320 of you got a job. Oh, except for me, they didn't. I was out, and so that was very, very pleasing because you just want this to run smoothly, and it's a hard thing. And they're like family to us.
Yeah, of course, and the whole organisation is essentially a child of yours.
Yeah, we built it from the ground.
Yeah,
and so many of them have been so loyal to us over. I've got we'd have numerous people over 10 years with us, and so many over 5 and 7 years, which is rare in hospitality.
Yeah. So since 2003 then, and now we're at 2025, that's almost 2 decades of owning pubs.
Yep.
Soon to be 0.
Yeah, we probably had 15 or so in that time, I reckon, that we bought and sold.
How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I don't know yet. It hasn't quite happened as this
as we record,
but when it goes to where it will.
Yeah.
I've so I have had the benefit of having sold a few, and incredibly, I've never walked back into any of them.
Interesting.
And it is, and I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it's you don't want to look back on what you've let go. Or it's certainly not about others not succeeding after you, but it's one of those things that you move on. I think it's about decision making and moving forward and not looking backwards.
Maybe like an old flame that you don't want to look at their holiday photos ever again. I guess
that's a very good analogy. But I think just on that, these will be different. I'll definitely walk back in these because we're very happy here on the coast, and so very different to the other ones. I think these are a lot more personal.
Yeah, and then do you think your scaling itch has been well and truly scratched in your lifetime, or do you think in whatever as we said at the top, like you've done a lot of work in different industries?
Yes.
Do you think you've got capacity to scale something else? Or we'll just wait and see?
Yeah, I'm going to take some time off. There's a couple of opportunities out there for sure. The phone rings and I've got a big network of people. So there's a lot of people I know here on the coast. We've done a lot of work with charities and sporting organisations and that sort of stuff. So I could definitely fill my time up with some of that sort of stuff, Richard, and really, and be quite fulfilled. So it's a bit of a wait and see, but if I can combine, hospitality and a bit of charity work and some sporting clubs and that sort of stuff, I think that would be the ultimate for me.
What's your view on leadership, and how have you been able to lead such a massive organisation from nothing?
Yeah, I think it's just positive, but main thing is just being positive, and it is hard all the time because you have setbacks and you have tough days and that sort of stuff. So I think predominantly it's about positivity with leadership and being there for them, giving them enough time. Time's a big issue for all of us. And
what do you mean give them enough time?
Oh, just, I'd have a one-on-one with each of our guys every week, each of our guys or girls that reported to me. And that'd be just an open session, So we'd have some things we had to get through, but also, they were there to share with me anything they needed to or something that wasn't going right in their lives or whatever. So I think we've had very open sort of relationships with them. That's the way I've lived. I've sort of tried to lead from the front as well. There's been nothing that I haven't been prepared not to do.
Yeah.
And they've seen that over time. And, try to be on the floor as much as you can. But I haven't been good at that over the last couple of years. The size of it got to me and it just wasn't possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Michael Jordan has said in the past that he's a hard taskmaster, but he would never ask someone to do something that he wouldn't be able to, or he didn't do himself.
Yes, that's right.
And I think
we did a lot of simple things like I talked a little bit about attention to detail, but we'd be picking rubbish up off the floor, or if, it's
nothing's beneath you.
No, and I think that's really important. So that was a big part of the leadership. I think also just being humble about things. The humility is a big part of it too. So I think ego gets in the way of a lot of people, and as we grew, I don't think I ever changed. I'm still the same guy that I was
owning the Stafford pub.
Yeah, or even before that.
Yeah.
Sure. So, and I look at it and go, it's been a great ride, and it has been a fantastic ride, and it's been a great outcome, and hopefully I've got a few years in front of me.
Absolutely, and then also on teamwork, how do you, knowing that you've structured it so that there were, by the sounds of it, leaders of different groups.
Yes.
What's your play? What's your strategy with giving them, those individuals, the freedom or the flexibility or autonomy to go and do what they have to do? So you're not micromanaging. So you're just letting them get the job done. Yeah,
that was a big one, and that's hard because you've got to be there for them when they need you, but you've also got to give them a bit of rope, and they'll make a few mistakes. I always had the reins on the financial side of the business, so I wanted to make sure that there wasn't an invoice that's gone through any of those pubs that I haven't authorised. For instance. So that's where I think you need to be fairly closely, very closely held there. But on the other sides of the business, like I'd give them the autonomy to make some of those calls, and I'll be there for them. And I think when you do that, they often they'll share things openly with you. And so I was part of the decision many of the times when I didn't even need to be.
Yeah.
But they were happy to include you in that.
Yeah, right. No, that's so good. On the financial side, what were you looking at when you talked about as you progressed with each business?
There's definitely industry
specific
benchmarks, if you like, that are pretty standard. We'd go and have a look at the site for if we're buying something, or if we're looking to buy something that was already there, we'd have a look at it, see what areas could we potentially improve it, how well was it managed, what were the staff levels like, was there potential there. So you're looking at not only just income opportunities, could I do the food better, what beers have they got on tap, how's the presentation, et cetera, but you're also looking at the cost side of things as well. So, wages are a big part of it, obviously. So were they overstaffed, understaffed? What was their service levels like? All of those types of things. So it's a combination of a lot of factors. You'd be looking to get 10 or 15% upside in that operation if it was fully priced. Otherwise, why do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But then if you're with yours, one thing that I always, with the risk piece, I guess, is that like a restaurant, you've got all this cost to run it. And I couldn't imagine what it will cost per month to run, let's say, all of it. From the top. And other than a handful of weddings or functions or a couple of, corporate bookings, there's probably not a lot of, you're not booked out.
No.
Blah Blah Hotel was an example. Was probably a red herring there for a little while, but
yes,
you're not booked out.
No.
And so you're reliant on trade.
Yeah.
Turning up.
Yep. You're backing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, you are backing yourself. And so then the numbers are live then. They're not, it's not like you've got recurring revenue.
No.
You have to continually, and that comes back to obviously the
repeat customers. And, we ran a lot of loyalty programs. Where I was just a big believer in that if you could, whatever enabled you to get close to the customer, we would invest in from a technology point of view. So if we could get to learn who that customer was, where they lived, what they liked drinking or eating, et cetera, you just got closer to them. And then, if you swiped their card at the bar, you then knew their name. Or, if you can then say, here's your favourite beer, Richard,
That's the personal touch.
Yeah, it's that personal touch. And,
right.
Really important.
And then if there was a drop in, you focus on the things that you can control, the quality of the food, the beers, whatever it is, and that personal touch. But ultimately, you are reliant on the factor you don't know is the demand.
Yep.
And so if the demand drops,
yep.
What does Scott Armstrong, what's your immediate position?
Yeah, you've got to look at, what are the factors behind that? Why is it? Is it our own performance? Is our consistency, has our consistency dropped? Is there an external factor as to why? Has there been a new competitor come in somewhere? Have we lost some people to those? So you always got to have your eyes open for what's happening locally.
How often are you looking at that, the demand data?
Every week, every week. So we're looking at, average sales per head,
how many people,
how many covers, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So you're looking at that all the time.
Right. And then obviously with enough data and to overlay seasonal activity.
Exactly.
Then
you're looking at last year, how we're performing against last year.
To the week?
Yeah, definitely. Was it wet? Was it dry? Was it, there's a lot of different factors.
Yeah, true.
And then you're talking to your people, you're going back and saying, look, what do you think this is? Why is the sports bar dropped? Or what do you think we need? And getting them to be part of the solution.
That conversation.
Yeah.
That's some good advice, I think. As I said, I've only been here a hot minute with your journey and a very, very small and not necessarily direct connection with you, but I will be. It'll be a bittersweet feeling. No, and again, a poofteenth compared to what it'll be for you. But when it's no longer Scott and Kelly's at the pub.
Yeah, it is. It will be, mate. It will be. It's very much like that now. And, as we get closer, we're we're 2 or 3 weeks away from it. So it'll get harder, I think.
Yeah. But congratulations.
Thank you, mate.
It's an enormous feat, but it's also an enormous amount of work.
Yes.
For anyone, but for you to do it and your family to do it together, it's so impressive.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming on the show. Before you go though, the 5 questions that we ask.
Yes.
Firstly, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, success. It's really about accomplishment, I think. It's about actually setting a goal and actually achieving it and getting a win. And that win could take various forms. It could be, a win for a personal reason. It could be a financial success. It could be having a better relationship with one of your children or something like that. So, yeah, it's definitely, something that gives you an emotional satisfaction that you've been able to achieve whatever that goal that you'd set.
Like that. What does happiness mean to you, Scott?
It's a mood thing. I think it's about being positive. It's about having that sort of mindset around a positivity that can deliver success for you, and it can take any sort of form, but I think if ultimately the happiest you can be is when you've got time to do the things that you really want to do. So I think it's about being able to do things, and I guess I'm moving into that phase now where saying, okay, well, it might be time to take a little bit of a break and do so a few more things for yourself and your family and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Some things that you might have sacrificed,
along
the way.
Yeah.
So, but I think your happiness levels will change as you go through life, and what made you happy as just when you're first getting out and getting married is very different to what I'm probably looking for now in this later chapter. So, Yeah, but I think I see it around, having the time to do what makes you happy. I think that's the key piece.
Yeah. What does your morning routine look like at the moment? Which will be very different in a month. In a month, I can imagine. But what does your morning routine look like?
It's changing a little bit at the moment because we're actually between houses, so we're staying in our motel at Caloundra.
Oh goodness!
Got the family there, and the dog is suddenly pet friendly, and so it's a little bit weird, mate. But I've always been a pretty early riser, so I'm up well before 6 usually.
Mm-hmm.
I try and do some exercise, whether it be walk the dog, go for a walk with Kelly. I've started back at the gym actually, which is good. So, and I do enjoy a swim too. So when I was up at Peregian, I was in the Noosa Aquatic. I'm now become a member of Caloundra Aquatic. So try to do something to keep a little bit of weight off because in our business it's very, very difficult. So hopefully I'll get a bit fitter as we move into retirement. So that'd be the morning. I try and scan the newspapers and just have some sort of understanding with what's happened over the last 24 hours, both financial markets and also, just some local news, absolutely. And from there, I'd be, hitting it from at least 8:15, and usually I'll have some one-on-one meetings earlier in the week, and definitely some external meetings towards the latter end of the week. So,
okay.
But typically I try to be home by, so these days 5:30, nothing too late, having dinner and hopefully the phone's off. We love going out and having a bite to eat. So phone's off and have a chat about what's happened and spending a little bit of time with the kids that are still around us.
Beautiful. A piece of advice you'd give to your younger self or something you put on a billboard for the world to see?
Yeah, no, it's probably a bit of a common one, but I think Wayne Gretzky, the ice hockey guy, said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. So, you're going to make some failures, and God knows I have. I've got a lot wrong. I've got parts of it right, and I think ultimately, if you get more right than you get wrong, then you win. But if you don't take the shot, if you don't have a crack at it, you're never going to know.
That's wonderful.
So I think that's probably relevant for me. If I look back, I wish I'd gone a bit earlier, but I never had the capital, and I never actually learnt the way I could do that, which was really through syndication and that type of thing. So whilst I'm hard on myself to say you should have done this when you were,
I have the same feeling.
Early 30s.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah. But I also have come to the same place as you just came, is that I wasn't ready, and for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And you just have to accept that.
Yeah.
And be thankful that it is now, or it was when you were late 30s.
Yeah.
Rather than late 40s or
exactly
never.
Yeah. So. And it could potentially be never. And a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people, they're not happy with where they're working, and you think, God, you got to change that. You got to change that somehow. Work on how you can break out of that. Because, life goes on, and, you go from a young kid through to, I just turned 60 the other day, and I go, my God, that's gone fast. And all the young people get told that from old people all the time. It just starts going quicker, but it bloody does. Yeah. And it's annoying.
All right. And finally, a guest that you would like us to, you think would be a good chatter or someone who should come on the show?
You've had Ros White, I'd imagine.
Had Ros?
Have you had Dirk Long?
Haven't had Dirk.
Dirk would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, Dirk would be good. Whether he'd do it or not, he's
Yeah, not too many property developers want to come on for some reason.
I don't know. Yeah, no, but he's good. He's a good mate of mine, and he's he's a guy with a lot of humility, and a lot of street smarts, and
okay,
and a good family guy.
Might get you to connect us. So.
Yeah, we'll try, mate. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Scott. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Richard. Cheers.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're at the pub, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. A huge thanks to Scott Armstrong for his candor, insights, and years of lessons compressed into one powerful conversation. If his story inspired you, take a second to subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who's standing at their own crossroads. That's how we keep momentum going together. Until next time, peace.